Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting, June 2nd of 2022, to order. If we could have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have a moment of silence for the victims of the Robb Elementary School tragedy. Thank you. Next up is public comments. Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? Hearing none. Next is the consent agenda. Greg?
Yep, I'd like to make a
Is your
motion.
mic on?
Sorry about that, sir.
Sorry.
Very good. Move that closer. Just want to make a motion to pull from the consent agenda item F5, Community Relations Task Force, in order to discuss that.
Can I have a second? Okay, discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. We will have that separate.
Thank you.
Can we take that right after the consent agenda? Fit it right in there? Is that all right with the board? Okay.
Yeah.
On the remainder of the consent agenda, can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
John, you second? Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It carries. Minutes, May 19th, 2022 regular meeting and May 23rd, 2022 special meeting. Can we have a motion for approval of both?
So moved.
Second, Justin?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I have to abstain.
Greg was not here. It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, we still have the health district. In the last meeting, was discussing with Jason, we were supposed to have some questions in writing. Can the selectmen send me your questions to my email? I will get them to the representatives. I will ask them to be at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting. I am also thinking that we should have I will reach out to them to discuss what they've been doing and their performance, and if they want to have it done in executive session or in public. I'm very concerned about the direction and our representation on this Health Department board. I do expect them. I will let them know, if not tomorrow, Monday. I'll send them an email explaining that to them and that they come to the next meeting, and whether they want to do it individually, together, in public, or in executive session. Next up, Jeremy Swamp. We have to schedule, Jeremy Swamp is, I don't know how much up to speed. We have a recommended 824-2 planning. The idea is that they will recommend, or not, I expect they will, proceeding with the process not to close it, because if we close the road, the adjoining landowners own to the middle of the road. There's a process we have to go to make it legal, permanent, open space. Require, I believe it'll require a town meeting. We also have to get sign off from all the adjoining landowners, and there's a process. So we'll get that 824. I made it to planning. They'll meet and they'll get that back to us. So we'll go through the proper process so that I was cautioned by our former attorney, Jeff Tinley, that, believe it or not, 100 years after someone did something like this, it wasn't done correctly, it really wasn't done correctly, so you have to do it right, so we'll do that. But the intention is to get this into a open space, linear park type of thing, and hopefully we can get that. So I think, Betsy, we don't have to have a town meeting on that yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet, okay. Any questions on that? All right. New business, waste management ordinance agenda. I know everybody has a few questions about that. I asked Jerry Lukowski to speak to this. It would seem that they've done a little research where the only town that allows tipping in our transfer station. And it's costing us quite a bit of money. And what Jerry will tell you, we found that there's been no break given in pricing to any of our citizens. So Jerry, is that on?
Yes.
Okay.
So thanks, Jeff. I know Jeff came to all the managers a few months ago and asked where we could cut in our budgets. This was one of the items that I brought to Jeff. So I've been observing the transfer station, and I actually worked the day after Christmas, the busiest day of the year, and I saw how the commercial haulers come in. So they pick up commercial waste from all of our residents. And there is close to probably 1,000 trucks a year that will come in and tip into our compactor, which is 17 years old. And it's approximately anywhere from 25 to 50% of our waste that's coming into the town. It's a pretty big number. The cost center for the transfer station is $1.1 million, including personnel, but also hauling and tipping fees. We tip to the incinerator in Bridgeport for our municipal solid waste, and we tip to Oak Ridge, which is in Shelton, for our recyclables. I know there's a lot of other different committees that want to do great things on recycling, but I think this is the first thing that has to happen in order for us to have the capacity to do glass, cardboard, and kitchen waste at the transfer station. But back to the point is we're definitely the only community in this area that's collecting municipal solid waste, and we're not getting paid for it. But what the deal was decades ago, from what I understand, was our residents were supposed to get a break. So we did a survey of the surrounding towns, and just about everybody pays $35 a month. I pay for $35 a month in Middlebury. The residents in Southbury pay $35 a month. So it's about $105 a quarter. I get it in a quarterly bill. So there is no break coming towards the Southbury resident. So I think the other thing that's going to happen in the garbage business, besides Hartford shutting down the big incinerator in the state, is no matter what, the costs are going to go up. So that $35 is not going to be $35, even if we didn't kick them out. And you know, if they raise the rate, it's going to have to be all the rates of all the surrounding towns. Primarily, it's USA that comes into our transfer station, and also Oak Ridge. And we do have a third customer. It's the state of Connecticut, coming from the Southbury Training School, with basically about 2 loads per week into it. But if you've been at the transfer station, they have to shut down the operation. They have to stop the residents from coming in, because the truck has to dump, and then it has to compact at least 4 or 5 different times. And we only get about 12 to 15 compacts out of the trailer that's down below. And then the truck goes up the hill and drops off the recyclables. Most of the time the recyclables are mixed, so when it goes to the recycling station in Shelton, they get rejected. So we pay additional price for that. And that's pure coming from USA, from the residents, but also the other big customer is Heritage Village, which we did meet with Heritage Village, and we told them that this was a possibility, this was coming. We met with them about 6 weeks ago, and we did ask them 3 simple things. What's in your contract? How does it read? So does it read your waste comes to Southbury? Does it read your waste goes to Frostbridge, which is another collection point that's over on the Watertown line? Or is it silent, or it doesn't say anything? So that's what we left to them to do their research, because it could have an impact financially on their side of the house. For us, the possibility at the low end is $250,000. And we think it's higher, but we don't want to, we're not sure, because part of it is we don't have a weigh station, a weigh table to weigh the trucks coming in or out. So all we know is what our trucks are going out, what they go in full, and then when they come out empty, and the delta is how much tonnage is going into that, into either the incinerator or into Shelton. I like the topic. I could go on forever for tonight. Unless you have any questions for me, I could just cut to the chase if you have something on that.
The tipping fees that we charge these companies, are they in line with what other towns that do?
We don't charge. We don't charge. And part of this, they kind of pissed me off the second month. This is I made a year. This is my 53rd week. So about 2 months in, the guy goes, I need to talk to you about this. And I'm like, great. And he's yelling at me, how come we have to wait? What about this? You know, you always put us at the end. And my guy who's been running it for a few years goes, ask him, how does he like free? I go, how do you like, you tip for free? We're not charging you. So technically you're not a customer of ours. You know, so our customers are our citizens, have to come first. And then it took me a while for the light bulb to go off. It's free.
So what am I missing? I own a garbage company. I collect garbage from everybody here.
Yep.
And then I go to Southbury and I dump my garbage in Southbury's facility.
Yes.
For free.
Correct. And you don't give a break to anybody from Southbury, which originally it was set up to do that. I guess when it goes back to the different names of like Copes, and then there was many other names that were out there that got bought out by USA.
Right,
so
right.
that is correct. So the other thing is we did is Jeff and I sign off on a document that authorizes the trucks to tip. It's in the ordinances, it's in our, our rules and everything. So I got that, and finally I made a sheet. These are the only trucks to come in and tip. And then we've been finding out there's other trucks coming in and tip. So we were like, okay, this isn't right. And then on December 7th, we started noting the truck numbers and how many pushes from the 3 different companies that are coming in. And to this day, we're keeping it, and it's a pretty large list of trucks that come in. The heaviest day is Tuesday, of course, after the weekend. We don't allow them in on Saturdays because it's the citizens that come first. So.
How much does it cost? You said 12 compacts, give or take, to
12 to
fill,
15,
whatever it is.
how wet it is, how dry it is.
Right, and then that goes off to be disposed of, incinerate, whatever it is.
Yeah,
And we pay for that.
correct.
Got it.
So, yes, and we pay for the hauling, down to Bridgeport, and we also pay for the tipping fee. The hauling company is Stone. They give us a pretty great deal. And the other part of that is every July 1st, we go off of the CPI. 2 years ago, it was like 0.5%. Last year, it was 5%. This year, we're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15%, just because of what's been happening over the past 6 months. So that alone, I hope and anything I do is just to break even, because as costs are increasing. And I think the other benefits is better service to the citizens that drop off there. We could take additional, for example, we could take cardboard out of the waste stream and get paid for it. Now they're paying for it again. And right now we don't, because we can't take that much time with so many different stations, because what's your expectation of a transfer station? For me, it's like in and out. It's the experience is not necessarily experience. It's just, I want to get in, I want to get out, from where you go. So if we could get the cardboard out, it would also help us on the recycling side, because we get charged a minimum of 4 tons per truck. And there's times we get 2.5 tons, 3 tons, because we can only crunch it into the dumpster so much. And really, I want like a second dumpster and a compactor and a third compactor, one for cardboard, one for the other recyclables. And our current one is 17 years old. So I can guarantee it's going to last for a couple months to a couple years right now. But if we get rid of the commercial, we're going to go from a couple years to maybe we get a half a decade out of it. And that alone is $250,000, $400,000 to replace that compactor. that's at the transfer station.
So that's part of the, is just, every time you cycle that compactor, it wears. Every time you cycle the compactor, there's electricity, there's hydraulics. And with them, if you cut that 50%, it's substantial. And again, I said, yeah, but there, so if we found out that our rate, if you were paying $10 a month or $15 a month versus $30 a month in Middlebury, all right, we get it, but there's no savings. So, you know, we're
And that's the other part, is we want to get ahead on the public affairs side, because of course they're going to say, our rate's going up because Southbury kicked us out. And we're going to say, well, you never gave us a break anyway. And oh, by the way, now it's going to go to $50 a month. And it's probably going Middlebury, where I live, to $50 a month too. It's just the way it's going, I don't know how they're holding that $35 across the whole area. Even if we didn't kick them out, that rate is going up within the next couple of months to all the residents that they collect from.
You said moving in this direction will help pave the way towards expanding recycling efforts, right?
Correct.
What does that look like? Like, how do we get from
Well,
here to
I
there?
see three things. It's cardboard, glass, and the kitchen waste. And to me, I would like to do cardboard first, and because we could bundle it, and then you could get paid for it.
Now, I guess in my head, how does eliminating the haulers coming in and out?
Just because of that time that you spend in the transfer station, you won't have a truck in front of you and have to wait for 5 compacts because they put that little bar across the top, that we would have more time to collect that there at the transfer station. And right now, the recycling is down low for the citizens and it's up high for the commercial. So that loader has to go from the top of the yard to the bottom of the yard, like constantly, nonstop, all the time, and trying to crunch 4 tons into a 20-yard dumpster. And it's blowing all over the place on top of the hill. When they dump it, we have the police call. It gets out on the road at times. So it's just, if any of you want to come out to the transfer station with me for an hour, you kind of, and it took me like literally a dozen visits for the bell to go off. They're saying something is wrong here. So at first I thought it was my guys are complaining. I'm like, just hold the line, do your job, let's go with your Teamsters. And then after a while, they're not complaining. We're getting abused as a municipality from these 3 companies. We met with both of them. I know Dan was with me about, and we asked them, what do our residents get? And they didn't have an answer. So, and then we also asked them, if we get out of the contract, you know, and they're like, get out of the contract. And it's like, well, I guess there is no contract other than that sheet of paper that Jeff and I signed off that give them permission, that they would need about 30 to 45 days, which is reasonable. So they could go figure out, and they're probably gonna go to Frostbridge, Danbury, or Waterbury, or down to Bridgeport. So,
which they're probably going there now with other municipalities. It also becomes kind of questionable, is when that truck comes into Southbury to pick up, is that all Southbury garbage on that truck? Now you're getting into GPS. We'd have to GPS track where their stops were, proving they went to dump the load at a certain time and there were no more stops after that. It gets pretty difficult to keep track of that. I wouldn't be surprised if there was not garbage coming on those trucks from other towns. I mean, if you can get a half a ton off on each load because you're tipping here instead of paying, what's a ton of?
I don't have the numbers here in front of me. It's like $80 a ton that we pay, and there's probably, I don't know, 20 to 30 tons on that truck. So each truck going out is 250, and these are some of the numbers I'll get prepared for 2 weeks from tonight for the informational hearing that we're going to have on June 16th. That I'll have more precise numbers for that.
Great.
So the current entities using our facility are aware that this is coming? Or there've been
Definitely
discussions
USA.
about it?
Oak Ridge, I haven't talked to them in a while. Oak Ridge, we haven't had as many problems with. But I did, and for a while I was taking really great notes, and then the other project, getting the roads done and everything else, you know, it kind of took precedence, and I stopped taking notes. But I know with Oak Ridge, we had issues because they do surveys, and it's like dumpster diving, but it's not dumpster diving, and you're checking for the addresses. And we found a lot of Danbury addresses in one of the Oak Ridge, and they start in Danbury. That's where they come out of. So we said, hey, there's addresses, and there happened to be a condominium development in Danbury. Oh, the driver, that was from the day before. He probably had, a little bit of weight on there from Danbury. So that's when I talked to him a lot about that, and I said, it can't happen. We can't, accept this. And I asked all of them, the question that Jeff said is, are you picking up in another town and driving to our town? And of course, they all said, no, we're not doing that. But I can't, justify it or say they were doing it. My feeling is they were. So, because when we started watching, we noticed a little bit of a drop in what was coming into the yard. And the yard is getting abused by the amount of volume that we have coming through.
How many commercial permits are out there? And how many trucks are allowed to use the dump?
I have that number. It took them a while for them to tell me what it was from USA and Oak Ridge. But I do have that, and I'll have that for 2 weeks from tonight.
Because we're supposed to be giving them this permits, right? They're not supposed to tell us. We're supposed to know that already, right?
Correct. We give them the permit to tip at our yard for free.
Now,
And then we
another
just say-
interesting thing is that there is another hauler in town that does commercial hauling, and that's H.L. Bennett. H.L. Bennett does not tip in our yard. I don't know where they go.
Yeah, and we don't take commercial. We take commercial residential.
Right. So that's what I wanted
Yeah.
to start to ask about also is,
Yeah.
I mean, reading through the ordinance, we're supposed to be, giving out permits and then checking door signage and making sure the trucks are labeled properly, checking to make sure the trash is, because when you say commercial, we're really talking about Southbury residential garbage that's being picked up by a third-party hauler and brought to our.
Transfer station.
So residents are
Correct.
paying somebody else to haul the garbage to them instead of them driving it down to the
Correct.
transfer station. So it's Southbury garbage in a Southbury transfer station, and it's included in our taxes.
Yeah, and I would think,
So this is really a reduction in services.
no, I don't.
No, because the commercial haulers are not giving any break to the citizens on the fee. Like I said, John, if Middlebury was $35 and Southbury was getting paid 25 or 30, you'd say, okay, they're giving us a discount because they're not paying the tipping fees. Everybody, they're charging the same. So
Right,
there's
my-
no
My
break.
service isn't gonna be reduced. My service will be the same, we
Services
use-
will be the same.
We use USA, at my house, so, right, that's not gonna change.
That's not gonna change. So it's
Still
not a
do
reduction in
business.
services.
Well, when they are told that they can't bring it to Southbury, their costs are gonna go up. They're not gonna charge you more?
They shouldn't, because they're charging the same at every other municipality residential service.
So 35 sounds great. I don't know if it was 18 or 19, but I went from Springer to Copes
Yep.
to USA within 12 to 14 months. I pay 57 right now for trash only.
Yeah.
My main concern with this would be, do they drop a huge bomb on Heritage Village? But it sounds like,
Then they need to go out and contract and competitively bid it, because
Yeah.
right now, they're not getting any break from these commercial haulers. And
Right.
the process that they went through was not, we didn't call them from town phones. And I think it was just Chuck Liddy helped with this.
Chuck Liddy, yeah.
He made calls and got the rates for residential pickup. and found that the rates in Middlebury were the same.
Right.
So they shouldn't change their rates at all.
So, I mean, what I'm hearing, and I heard that, and I talked to the folks up in Heritage Village, and I think the rude awakening there is that residents, whether it's in the village or, you know, you, through your pickups and whoever, we're being taken advantage of because the fee is the same as the other fee, but they're bringing it, and tossing it for free.
Correct.
So by all means, great research and great information, and thank you, Chuck Letty, but the question goes back to those haulers, like, hey, you're dumping the trash for free because it's already included on our taxes, where's our discount? Not that we're just gonna send them away. And then, you know, I'm thinking that if, and especially Heritage Village, when we're told that you can't bring that trash down there, somewhere in there was a profit center for them to haul trash that's going to increase. So I'd be curious, did Heritage Village, how was it presented to Heritage Village? Was it?
We met them 6 weeks ago here in Town Hall, and we went through basically the same kind of discussion. And we left them with those, looking at your contract and which way of the three things it's written in your contract, and they haven't gotten back to us.
So were you waiting for an answer from them too, so we can,
I don't
because they
know.
just took your word for it that they were getting abused, but they didn't.
I would have expected an answer, and like I said, it was, how's your contract read? Does it say where is it being tipped, Southbury or somewhere else, possibly Frostbridge or Bridgeport? And then, or the third thing, it was silent. Because if it says they're tipping somewhere else, then they're already getting paid for it. If it says Southbury, well, they probably are gonna get an increase. If it's silent, well, the lawyers are gonna have to get involved, you know, with it. But, you know, if our costs go down 25,000, go down 250,000, and theirs goes up 25 or 50,000, it's still, in the big picture, it's a gain. Not granted, not for that entity of, you know, up there.
And we expect, I mean, that's a conservative estimate just on the tipping. It doesn't include any, you know, estimate on the savings on the equipment. Then increasing our recycling capabilities and the Sustainable Southbury objective of doing food waste, which is something we want to do and get that out of the stream, and the limitations of the transfer station because of the size. There's limitations with these trucks coming in. And again, I don't know of any other municipality that allows tipping in their transfer station from commercial haulers that we know of.
The one I heard recently that got off of it was Greenwich. And then Stanford saw some additional waste coming into Stanford because a lot of the haulers were taking garbage, municipal solid waste from Stanford and bringing it to Greenwich until Greenwich started to charge. And we would have a hard time charging because we don't have a scale to weigh.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to a transfer station that didn't have a scale. I'm kind of curious about that too. Like, would it be a better investment to have a scale and charge them for this work and then also spot check them?
There's no one out, because then we would be in a different classification within the DEP that we're charging. So, and just to pay for the scale alone is gonna be quite a bit of money, and we're kind of on a landfill that's capped, so we really don't have good foundations out there because we're on top of it. For example, we don't even have running water or bathroom. We use a porta potty 12 months out of the year, you know, so there's a lot of improvements we want to make, but the site is very difficult to work with. And a lot of it is we don't want to dig, and we probably can't dig because of our permit for the closure of the landfill.
So even to set scales up there would be difficult, and the location you would have to go to set a set of scales would interfere with the movement of traffic. I mean, is there a spot we might be able to find for a set of scales? you'll have scales, but the traffic will become a nightmare.
And
of
it's
getting
not,
around.
it's not so I had the scales on 95 and up in 84 for weighing trucks. And I go to Middlebury. Their scale is like for pickup trucks and small cars. A scale for a municipal solid waste garbage truck is so there's not any towns out there that have scales of that because they get scaled at Bridgeport and Shelton, and they're supposed to be certified, on those scales. So that's where the scale cost that is. And it's a table, so it would be a table with like 8 to 12 inches of concrete, the width of that vehicle, and then the springs and the scale. So and then the calibration and the keeping it running, and then the water that gets in there and the frost. I know we spent a ton of money on the Greenwich scale coming into Connecticut, but it was worth it because you're weighing trucks and taking care of the bridges. So,
Yeah, if you're scaling trucks coming through on an interstate, it's
Yeah.
a lot of business. And if you're scaling product at O&G or whatever, it's a lot of business. The cost of operating that scale to come to determine would be astronomical. And locating a spot for it would disrupt the whole flow. And if your idea is to get to recycling and increasing our recycling, you would just not have the room in that area. Hey, John, have you been there?
To the transfer station?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean,
Sure, yeah.
you're in Heritage Village, so,
No, I do my little projects and
yeah,
bring my stuff over there.
on a Saturday.
My main concern basically is that we're labeling this, and because it says it in the ordinance as commercial, but it is residential garbage that's being carried by a third party. And and I'm just thinking out loud, is once the ability for somebody to bring their trash to the same trash hole, trash location for free, gives them the ability to negotiate with the hauler to say, hey, you're doing this only for $35 or $30 or whatever that cost is, and negotiate it, and not pay the 57 or 60. But once they're not allowed to bring it there, and now they're going to increase the costs.
Well, like John
I
said.
think even if we didn't do anything, the costs are gonna increase. Every bill's going up that we have, so.
Right.
It's going up anyway, but of course, they're gonna point at us, as saying it went up because of them. But it's gonna go up in Middlebury and Woodbury and all the surrounding towns.
I guess what I'm thinking is that, like, the idea of conservation or recycling and having less trash is to put a cost on it. So if I can just bring as much garbage as I want there, household garbage, and dump it there, and it doesn't cost me anything. So I'm thinking that monitoring how much is going in there, whether it's commercial trucks or residential cars.
Well, we need
There
to,
should be some sort of a fee structure that the more you bring, the more it costs, and that way you bring less.
there's theories on that, and there's also theories that people then throw it out on the side of the road because of the transfer station rather than bring it.
We've been finding a lot of stuff on the road lately. Just this week alone, a couch, a TV, and just 20, 30 bags of garbage. So if you're gonna charge them, they just dump it before they even get there.
So this cost savings one of the concerns was, again, if our citizens were seeing a break on the cost, then we could see, well, okay, we're gonna keep going, but they're not. They're charging the same here as they do in the other municipalities, and we're finding loads come in with out-of-town. How do you control that? So it's
So
costing
there
it.
should be isn't there a fine in the ordinance if they're not allowed to come in, or they pay a fine, they pay for the whole truck? There's
Yeah.
other ways to get.
We don't,
to
that
deal
we're
with that.
fortunate to find that. It's not like we're dumpster diving. It like blew out onto the ground. Oh, look at this fresh mail. And of course, oh my God, it wasn't our fault. It was the one time, and we haven't found it, again, so.
So then you get into, ask them to put our GPS onto their truck so we can track it. I doubt they're gonna let us do that. Then you get into having your personnel checking to see if the garbage is from out of town or not. Then you get into how much does, it's just a nightmare, and there's no savings to the citizens on the hauling, on the pickup. There's just none. So it's easier just to,
Yeah. I think I'd like to hear that from USA or Oak Ridge or the carrier up at Heritage Village.
hear from them what?
Just hear from them that they commit that there's not gonna be any additional costs.
They're gonna tell you it's an additional cost. There's no question they're gonna tell you it's an additional cost. They don't want to pay to dump the garbage, because they're making about $300,000 to $400,000 a year on us.
So there will be additional costs to
They're
the
gonna tell you,
residents.
but there should not be. They should not increase the cost, John, because the cost in Middlebury is the same as the cost in Southbury. So there is no increase. They're gonna try and use that as an excuse. That's for Heritage Village to sit with the haulers and say, we're not, there was no break. You were charging the regular as everybody else. I mean, like I said, they made the phone calls and made it without a town of Southbury. And matter of fact, didn't you, there was a conversation in the yard with someone and the guy said, yeah, that's not a problem or something?
With the cost, or?
I forget, where the other guy from the hauling company was not happy that he had spoken, the other guy spoke?
Oh, yeah, so we had both of them in the office. There's a good guy and bad guy, just like you go into any meeting. And then the good guy kind of was very upset out in the parking lot, and we observed them yelling at the bad guy. So they kind of know that this was, they kind of went too far with using us. And and I see where you're coming from on some of the points, John, but it's just, if you wanted to come up and I could walk you through this, observing what's going on, Tuesday's probably the best day. And in fact, the day after Christmas, which was actually 2 days after Christmas, we were closed on Monday, it was a Tuesday. Once the private haulers started coming in, the commercial haulers started coming in, we started backing people out on the road and all the way down past IBM. And then we started stacking up the commercial haulers off to the side where they were waiting like a half hour or two, because every time we would pull them in, it's about a 10-minute operation in the 4 or 5 pushes, and we couldn't get the residents in fast enough and trying to keep them safe into the yard.
And I'm almost thinking that for each one of those trucks to come in, is that how many cars that didn't come in?
Correct.
Right, so if
Yeah.
the trucks aren't allowed in and the cost goes up, more residential cars come in.
And without the trucks, I tell you, we could definitely handle additional cars, because the cars are a much lower impact than what we have with the truck that's coming in. And to me, it's dangerous with our loader going up and down the hill, especially when it gets into the S curve, and we have residents driving behind the loader, and us trying to push down the recyclables. And I was there once, and the sun was coming down, and I was blinded, and I'm like, where's that loader in front of me? And I see this resident's winging right by, and, I gotta get rid of this, and I gotta go to my next appointment. So it's all a rush when you're in the transfer station.
So I think even, if we're gonna move forward on better recycling and food waste, we have to do this.
And I know we're starting to account better for the diesel in our payloader, but about probably 3/4 of that diesel in that payloader is because of the commercial waste that we have to go on the top of the hill and spend a lot of time up there on working it. Residential, it's a couple crunches. That commercial, because it comes in off of a big truck, and it tips everything off of the truck into the 20-yard, and you just shake your head like, what are we doing here? How do we get to this point?
So
Well, as people look for additional services and stop doing this work themselves, I mean, they've been weaning off of bringing their garbage to the town transfer station and hiring a company to do it for them. Now there's gonna be a rude awakening for these folks possibly.
No matter what, even with us doing this, like I said before, the cost is the CPI going 10 to 15%, I don't know how they're holding the line right now with the diesel cost and moving all the garbage around. I know for us, it's easy for them. They just tip right here in town. Yeah, they're gonna have a longer drive to go to the locations that they have to go, but that's their business model.
And I can assure you that if they don't dump that load at the end of the day, because they only have a partial load, they're not gonna take a partial load, let's say they're in Middlebury, they're not gonna take a partial load to tip wherever and come back. They're only gonna do if they have a full load. They're gonna come into Southbury, pick up their loads, dump in our transfer station, and then go back out to pick up the rest and then dump in our transfer station. So if you can't see that, it's being pretty much taken advantage of here, the citizens, as far as I'm concerned, and what I've seen, and there is no savings.
I think at that public meeting, it'll be really interesting to see what a conservative estimate in savings would be and what, on the opposite end, a more generous estimate. And see what that range is and what that means for the town. To me, that would be interesting. I think about having the vision. I know, it's being pushed at the state level as well, all the recycling opportunities. And we talk about, food waste and glass and where we're going with that. Whatever, just thinking about sustainability, the environment, all that stuff. It'll be kind of fun to think about what
I'll be honest
that'll
with
look
you,
like at our transfer station.
conservatively, $250,000, I would say more likely, I would venture to say 400. When you get all in a peripheral cost of the compactor, diesel fuel, wear and tear, everything, and the tipping fee, tipping tonnage, we've talked probably closer to 400, but we're not gonna sit here and tell you it's 400. I know it's at least $250,000. So that's why we're looking into it, changing this ordinance.
So I have a logistical question. The permits, according to the ordinance, expire on June 30th of each year.
Correct.
So it's June 2nd. We have a public hearing in 2 weeks. Let's say we do this and we pass the ordinance, then we have to publish it. The window of notice to these folks is very small. So are we planning on pulling the plug the 30th, or are we gonna give them temporary permits or something?
I think we give them
Period?
temporary permits for 30 days, 45, 60, 90 days.
Okay.
And
I would go on a monthly basis, and I mean, again, they have to get permits from us, but if I don't sign the permit, they don't have a permit to go in. I mean, I don't know what restrictions they have on me. Are they gonna take the town to court because they didn't sign for the permit? We could tell them that if this ordinance passes on the 1st of July, you're not gonna be allowed in the transfer station. That's your notice now. You need to make provisions to get in your hauling to some other place. And the
No,
ordinance.
What I'm saying is, are we gonna give them a transition period? So
We could give
this
them
all
notice
becomes
tomorrow.
effective. Like, if we act as quickly as possible here, and we decide to do this, at best, this all becomes effective like right around June 30th, based on our charter.
Correct.
So that's like zero notice. So are we planning to give them like a temporary permit to bridge the gap, or are we planning on telling them today, hey, this is what we're doing?
No,
you guys are out?
it's
I plan on telling them today. That's what I want. I want to tell them today, or tomorrow or Monday, that this is what's gonna happen, and if it all passes, July 1st, you will need to haul it someplace else. And they would need to, I mean, they're already hauling to these other places. They have arrangements with other yards. They're just gonna have to take it there. And why even bother?
Right, whatever the outcome of, let's play hypothetical, whatever the outcome of the vote is, as a business, you put together a contingency plan. It's
Right.
just,
This
just
is
in
your
case.
notice. To me.
because all the surrounding towns have USA too, and they're going to their different locations in the
So
deals
they
that they
have
have.
contracts with
Correct.
places.
So Oxford, Middlebury, Woodbury, it's all USA. USA bought out all those companies. And then what did they do? They jacked up their rates. And I remember I had a carpenter in my house who had some other condos and did different things,
Not only that, they took vacation away from employees that have been driving those trucks for 25 years.
right?
Used to get 3 weeks, now they took them
The
down
same,
to 2.
like, the same like Springer's drivers.
Same guy.
Same
He's
guys.
gone now, but that's how it started with him.
Right.
And they called the office, how come my rates are going up? He said, oh, we need a lot of money because we've been buying out all these other companies. So, because right, as they were bought out and you finally got the USA, the price went up.
Yeah, yeah. So to be clear, what we're doing now is just scheduling a public hearing. It's gonna be noticed. People that have concerns can come down here and tell us about them, right? Before we make our final decision. So I would certainly move that we schedule this if it hasn't already been moved.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, and it carries. Thank you, Mr. Lukowski.
Thank you very much and appreciate being up here. And on July 1st, we are also going to start issuing out permits to the residents. I got some great crafted language over the past day or two, so we could put out there and get that going again with the stickers. So, and I chose red because I love the Army engineers, so that's why we got red.
I do, if you got, I know up next is Selectmen's report, and I don't have a big report. What?
Community Relations Task Force.
Oh. Okay. I just want to say while Jerry's here that what a great job, the chip sealing that's been going on. That's always a bone of contention for all of us, and the calls, especially my office, went pretty smoothly. All the work that was done, the plan of continuing to operate using next year's and roll it right through, we were done by the Memorial Day. Chip sealing was done,
And mill and pave.
and mill and pave. So that's a big tip of the hat to the Public Works crew and to Jerry. Great plan. We're done for the summer with that. We're moving on to other pieces, and Jerry's the one who got that done. The other guys did. They were all,
Yeah, the
I
whole
mean,
team.
it was,
We still have to do Old Waterbury Road. We were waiting for school to get out, because we don't want to mill and pave that while all the buses are coming up and down the hill. And in July, we do the tack coat for the chip seal. But the big muscle moves and the money happened by the end of May.
and this made it so it was much more efficient use of Public Works crews. They don't have to gear up for one thing, then gear off for something else, and then get on to something else. So this is gonna help a lot. And my phone won't ring, I hope, anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right, Community Relations Task Force. We wanted to make some appointments to that. We're still short 2 people. I just want to give you a little situation where I think this task force is going to help us. Give you, for instance, Park and Rec has tree lighting. They're getting beat up. What do we do about that? How do we get all of our community involved during that holiday season, make everybody feel welcome in town? And this is something, we had a non-meeting because we weren't officially appointed. What could we do and what might be done that would relieve some pressure from one of our department heads, whose only job is to get the tree decorated and get the switch on. And make sure the electricity works, because we've had some problems over there. And this is something that this task force could help with. Make it, and we've already had some suggestions from what we might do, and that was the intent of this group, to kind of figure out, okay, how do we do that with the rest of the community and make everybody feel welcome, and other things. As I said, I don't think anybody doesn't want to have a tree lit in town during the holiday season. It's just, how do we make it for everybody? And that's all there is to this. It's pretty simple. So we'd like to, but what Greg brought out a point to me was, should there be term limits?
Right.
And I said, you know, you're probably right.
Right, so I was just reviewing the text on it, and, you know, like it says, we're resolved to appoint the members, and that's not why I brought it to discussion. It was just in my head. I said, well, that's interesting. Is this, you know, do people serve for a year, 2 years? What is it? And that prompted another question in my head, serving as the liaison to the Energy Task Force. I'm like, well, how long do the Energy Task Force people go on the town website? I don't see any information. I called Chuck Liddy, and he said, no, we don't have any, we don't have any term limits. So town has 3 task forces: ARPA, Energy Task Force, and Community Relations. And it just made sense to me that we establish, like any other board or commission, some kind of term limit, where, just like any other, you know, if you're interested in, you know, serving again, you get reappointed, and you go from there.
So I'm open to suggestions of,
So I have a question regarding the students. What grade level would they be? And then obviously, do they move on to college? And, you know, so if we're going to, certainly wouldn't want to do like a 4-year term limit, because that's an awfully long time, but is 1 year, do they run out of time to accomplish what they're looking to do?
Right, does the senior community member serve X number of, say,
Right.
years, but the student only
Right.
serves 1?
well, the rising senior would have to be, there is a senior, but we are also looking for to be here, but that's Hannah Hussein. The rising senior is trying to get the right rising senior. She'll graduate. I mean, we're almost into graduation. They're reaching out to the juniors who will be seniors, and then hopefully at that point, that will be the person who continues on. Once we get the essays or whatever in about who might be interested and why, which the last time we only had one person. We only had one, I mean, the region reached out 2 or 3 times, 4 times, I forget what the number, trying to get interested students, and there was only one. So I don't know what's gonna happen this time. And of course, the clergy, there was changes in clergy and, you know, some leaving. John?
It's just a footnote for Region 15. So when they were originally asked to send out the requests and get the letters, and it was in the midst of COVID, kids weren't
Yeah.
in school, there was, and then it ended up being end of year. So to their credit, they worked on it, they came up
It's
with
just
a solution.
difficult times.
So it was a difficult time, but moving forward, the idea there was the rising senior is an 11th grader that is working their way into it, and then serves through their senior year. And then, so they're always kind of one.
So I would say that the rising senior would be replaced at graduation. They would only, till they graduate. The rising senior would be on there until they graduate, until their graduation. But as far as the others, I mean, I could be out in another year and a half. But, it's your pleasure on a suggestion.
Yeah, I actually wanted to lean on the rest of you guys to kind of just think about how other boards and committees serve, and just what's the right, I don't think that for anyone who's serving for the town that you just get appointed and it's a permanent appointment. And that was sort of, you know, my thought on that there should be a limit. And so.
2 years for most of them, right?
Yeah.
Right, that was my initial thinking, was a 2-year appointment. But does it have to, that's the part that I'm stuck with, is does it have to be staggered, or? How do we
I don't think we need to stagger this one. Do you see any need for that?
I don't think so. And I think 2 years makes sense, because 1 year, can you really get everything done in 1 year?
I don't think there's
That's
any board or
not-
commission that only has a 1-year
No.
appointment, so.
And most of these are defined offices. So as I recall, like the 2 selectmen are part of the resolution, they have to be a member of the Board of Selectmen. Selectmen, they were only 2-year terms, so it would make sense that the selectmen, 2 years. the students, we've talked about that sort of defined universe, like the students only be the students. So really, the only one with flexibility in that regard would be the two community members. Because the other two categories are sort of defined by their positions and, yeah.
It'd be the two community members and the, oh, right, understood, I got it.
So should there be language that the two community members serve a 2-year term?
With the ability to renew, obviously,
Yes.
they
Yeah,
would,
like
yeah.
any other.
Right,
Yeah, I think
yeah.
that there should be.
All right.
There's gonna be rotation in student, there's gonna be ultimately overtime rotation in selectmen. So yeah, that's what I'm suggesting.
And the region is going to appoint whoever from the region. We're not going to, it's a member of the Region 15, and that could change or not. But you can't tell them it's their limit, now pick some, you know, that's, we're not going to be able to do that, so.
In my head, 2 ways to go, either table with language for the next meeting or approve with the, make a motion to approve on the condition of, you know, language with term limits. So how do we move forward with that?
Were they planning to meet in the next 2 weeks? Because we could just.
We can
pick it
always
up
have a
at the next meeting
non-meeting.
So someone can, so the appropriate language can be drafted and just deal with it at the next meeting.
Yeah, so let's table, I'll entertain a
Or if
motion.
we add, just in the top part, it's basically the Service Community Relations Task Force for a term of 2 years. I mean, is it as easy as putting in that sentence? I mean, I think we're all kind of in agreement that it's 2 years, so that if
Where would the language be?
point the following, to serve as members of community relations for a period of 2 years.
Well, when is the next meeting? Is there another meeting set?
It hasn't been scheduled because we're waiting for this.
Yeah, I mean, we can all get together and visit. It's not the end of the world. It's not an official meeting, so, when's our next board meeting? That's,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Let's table till the 16th, and we'll get the right language in there, and we'll go from there.
So, motion to table this resolution till the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
So moved.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and we'll table it to the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so, went over the chip sealing. Great Memorial Day Parade. It was a lot of fun. Got a great tan. It was nice to see everybody there, and it was nice to see the community out there. I don't have a lot prepared for this. Do you have any questions of me? No? All right. Reports from liaisons. Justin?
None of my groups have met since our last meeting.
Jason?
EMS committee met last week. They went through the South Prairie ambulance reports. They talked about how they have a group working on their annual report for 2021. They started a discussion on deliverables for the EMS plan, things that need to be done. They're going to start working on recruitment and retention programs for the services and mass casualty planning. And then on the recruitment and retention front, they were also talking about committee appointments, and I did reach out to the First Selectman's office. They have a vacancy, and they're going to be having another vacancy, so I've asked the town send out sort of a townwide email soliciting interest to fill vacancies in the committee, and coming vacancies in the committee. My other committees did not meet, but there was an emergency planning exercise, a statewide exercise as part of LEPC. It was in this room. It was set up sort of like a mock EOC, and there was a Zoom with state and towns around the state, and I participated in a couple hours of it in the morning. It was a hurricane training, and I heard from our emergency management director that after I left, I had everything in control in town, but after that, it went up to like a Category 3 hurricane, and the town got obliterated. So, things were doing well earlier in the way. But
I left
it was
the
a good,
room.
you weren't there for that either. So, but it was, it's good. It's good to have those exercises. The police were there, Public Works, ambulance, everyone that would ordinarily be involved in the OC of responding to an emergency event. So that occurred, and those were my only meetings.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John?
So the Parks and Rec met last week. They haven't prepared a copy of their minutes yet, and I wasn't sitting in on that meeting. I was sitting in on the Conservation Commission. As usual, some pretty good things going on there. Bennett Park, they're working on details for stabilization of the riverbank in that area, and they're moving forward with some work on getting approvals from the inland wetlands. Let's see. Janie Pierce Park, they treated 1,300 feet of boardwalk. So if anybody's walked through that park, there's a lot of boardwalk that's been created over the years, and it had a lot of moss and algae buildup, very slippery, and so they actually put crud cutter to clear moss and mildew that's built up over the past few years. They spent 13 hours on that. Those are volunteers, so a couple of volunteers from the commission actually did that work. So I want to just put a shout out to them on that. A second treatment of Transylvania Pond was done on May 24th. And Little and Old Cove. So I don't know if it's been brought to your attention yet, but there's down at the end of, in Little and Old Cove, where the road dead ends and they're building a new gate there. There's a trailer parked on the side of the road, little piles of trash, and a skid for, looks like they left the work there from the stone wall they're building further down. So they were reaching out to, my understanding, reaching out to your office to just get a little assistance on how to get rid of that trailer and how to get that trash picked up and moved out. Little York Park, they working on the parking area down there. They actually just, and again, volunteers from the committee built a kiosk that's been put in a trailhead there, and they're getting boulders that are installed to block off that parking area to keep cars separated from the park area. So they're doing some pretty good work there. And then Platt Park, they are actually asking Mr. Lukowski to come and meet them at their next meeting to go over some details of just coordination and how they can better work with Department of Public Works to come in and do some trail maintenance and the best way to put in work requests and the like. So that should be some pretty good coordination. And other than that, invasive species work is being done, and the hemlock woolly adulid is still out there, but they're working on they're working on getting the insects that actually eat that. And this year it's been was put off basically for a reason for they were not able to get during the budget season, weren't able to get a check and payment made to the company in time. So they put that off until next spring. But they're working on coordinating that a little better this year. Other than that, they are a hardworking group of people. So.
All right. Selectman Kuhn.
All right, so I got reports on senior services and the energy task force. I wasn't here in town for the last meeting, but I did catch up through minutes and the director's report. There wasn't much of, there wasn't a whole lot covered in the last commission meeting, other than what I'd like to highlight from the director's report, which is trying to move forward in a post-COVID, or I should say, pandemic world, and senior services working to begin serving congregate meals again, which I think is good. the last meals that the senior center served was around April or May of 2020. So we're going on 2+ years now. So it'll be nice to see that move forward. Kind of interesting, I've taken some time to look at different metrics that have been kept since about 2017. If you go back through minutes and whatnot, that membership and activity levels are about half of what they were going back to 2017. And rides are down to about 1/3 of what they were back in 2017. So that's pretty significant. And, you know, that decline is concerning. Some of it absolutely is attributed to COVID, but some of it isn't. And you could see that from 2017 to, you know, about February of 2020 is when you see those COVID numbers start to really, you know, make a difference. But a decline in that period. So I'm kind of excited to engage Senior Services Commission and the Senior Services Director on their take on, you know, what I'm seeing there, and really what we can do to focus on a plan to bring people back to the senior center, engage seniors that way, what they're looking for, and understand what kind of opportunities we have, you know, moving forward in what I'm calling a post-pandemic world, really. So looking forward to that. The Energy Task Force, a couple different topics. Virtual net metering. The task force is still waiting to hear back on the status of the application that was submitted to the state to enter their virtual net metering program. If that application gets accepted, it really presents an opportunity for us to take a look at developing power generation, such as solar generation, which in and of itself brings its own interesting challenges for the town. But it creates opportunities like creating a town microgrid, which has been a conversation that would supplement power to specific town-owned buildings, for example. The task force continues to conduct a feasibility assessment in developing a microgrid. They have a whole task list that they're working on, everything from benchmarking against other Connecticut towns, the cost and benefits, how to approach financing on a project like that, all the things you'd want to understand before getting to a point where you propose it and undertake a project like that. Tied to all of that is looking at a program called Sol Smart, S-O-L, Smart, which is a national designation program, and it's a certification system, kind of like the way we're in Sustainable CT, which in this case, Sol Smart is there to help attract solar developers to invest in Southbury. So the Energy Task Force is presenting a presentation to the Board of Selectmen in the near future to help us understand the benefits of the certification and how it brings us one step closer to making Southbury a little more green. And last, the Energy Task Force is looking at having key town buildings undergo an energy audit, kind of not unlike what we do in our own homes, to take a look at any recommendations we receive from that audit and the decisions that would be, need to be made on how to improve our energy efficiency and the potential opportunity that comes with that, financial incentives to get those improvements done. So all those things are in the works, and looking forward to the task force presenting so that we can understand that and have an opportunity to ask, like Chuck and those guys, more questions. That's
Thank
all I
you.
got. Thank you.
Holly?
So the Region 15 Board of Ed actually had to cancel their meeting on Monday due to the untimely passing of one of the Board of Ed members, John Cookson, who unfortunately passed in a car accident on Saturday night. So it's very rare that they cancel a meeting. So they did not have a meeting this past Monday, and I did have the opportunity to speak with Marion Manzo, the chairperson, and she just, reflected on how much he contributed to the Region 15 Board of Ed, and this is a truly tremendous loss for our Board of Ed to lose him so untimely. There will be a Board of Ed meeting on the 13th. That is also the date of his services, should anybody be interested in attending.
Okay. Something I did remember, you know there's been a lot of talk about River Road. I'm sure you're watching social media, you're seeing the things going on. I did meet out there today. Number one, the first thing Public Works is gonna do first thing on Monday mornings is go over there and see if there's any trash. Aside from that, we're going to be adding more no parking signs. There's gonna be a flex beam coming in, a rail, there's rocks that are always been put there to keep people from parking on the sharp corner, on the corner on Berkshire Road. I know it's hard to believe, but those big rocks have been rolled out of the way, and that happened last year. So this year, we're gonna put the flex beam in all the way around, redo the hash marks for no parking. People will be able to pull in. We're gonna expand that a little bit, so they can pull in and park like diagonally. People have to have some place to park up there. Residents need to during the week. You can't, you don't want to restrict it that they can't go there during the week. But parking at an angle, hopefully we'll see how this works. It's never going to be a perfect design. We're going to try and get a sign put up that asks people to take their trash with them. I think the issue is that they're not taking their trash. If the trash wasn't there, I don't think people would have as big an issue, you know. So hopefully we'll get that done. I guess I was optimistic or pushing because of everybody complaining. I had hoped to get it done this weekend, and tomorrow's Friday. It's not. You had to call before you dig. It takes 3 days. You have to, before you can put guardrails in. The guardrail people are in town, so it's not a big deal. It's not like they're coming in. They'll just run those lines and put them in, and we'll see what we can do to control a very difficult situation. You know, you can't tell people they can't go there. You can't be putting up fences, and we have to be careful. No parking. You're going to push no parking all the way up into Oakdale and the side streets. And then if you put no parking in Oakdale, if somebody comes to visit someone in Oakdale, they won't be able to park on the street. So it's not quite as easy as people think it is. We're also working on Little York Road, more no parking signs. They have given out a number of tickets, and they are on it, and they're towing cars. The trouble is, you put signs in, and then people come and they tear them out. So last summer it was easy. It was a lot of rain on the weekends, so there wasn't a lot of people. And already, you know, if we start getting good weekends, like we did Memorial Day weekend and the heat, the people are coming from out of town. And we'll see what happens. It's always been a problem forever. And it's not, Eversource, or First Light deals with this. Every town that has, that First Light is in has this issue. Every one of them. So we're gonna increase some, no parking. We're gonna patrol as much as we can. I know there's some people saying that the police don't go there. That's just not true. They've written tickets, they've towed cars if they're supposed to be towed, and, you know, I personally, not last year, but the year before, would go to those parks and ask the people using it, please take your trash. It's not that we don't want, you know, that you're not welcome here. Please take your trash, and tell the other people that come here that you see, whether you know them or not, to please take your trash. And I think if, you know, it helped when you talk to them about that to people, but we'll see how the no parking and see what happens. I don't want to push it so far that they're parking out in the other neighborhoods. And they have been known to go up into the Berkshires. People have gone up in the Berkshires and parked on side roads and private roads. And so And they drop off at the gate, and one of the driver takes the car and parks it a half a mile away and walks back. And the problem with that too is, if they've got to go that far back to their car, they're not gonna take their trash to the car. So it's just a difficult situation that we're working on. And I don't expect it to be perfected. I don't expect it to be taken care of this summer. I don't think it's gonna be next summer or the summer after that. It's pretty difficult unless you own all the parking. So we're working on that. I just met out there today with the police, with Jerry, and our foreman, come up with some ideas, and we'll take some steps and see where we go. All right? Very good. Anything else?
On that note, and there were just some people chatting about it earlier today, has there any been investigation or thought process on permits or stickers or something that just,
You can't
instead of
put,
a non-parking sign, a resident-only parking?
no.
So that,
If you don't own it, you can't, you would have to create a parking lot and then residents only, or parking permitted only. That means they wouldn't park in the parking lot, they would park out on the roads. Do you understand what I'm saying?
like down in Norwalk and then up in Boston, Somerville,
Yeah.
there, like, if you don't have a permit on your car, you just can't park on a town road. And
I
so,
think
like,
we
in
would have to
those-
get into an ordinance, I don't know how we would,
But in those, like, in those neighborhoods that are close to those areas, you just basically say town permit only. And then the other thing they were talking about is a sign on those. So when you see the people hanging out there drinking the beers, having a party or whatever, what do the people who are witnessing that do? Is there like a sign that can be posted under the one that says, no drinking, no out-of-town residents, but call 311 if it's observed, so that there could be some more immediate action taken.
we'd try anything. But I don't know how difficult it would be to us to have resident parking only. And again, then you're gonna have to prove you're a resident, you're gonna have to get us stickers, you're gonna have all the mechanics in place. And I'm not sure if you can get, how do you have something?
Well, I was just gonna say, we have a sign up at the boat launch, it says Southbury residents only. Doesn't work, I'll tell you, I go to the boat launch all the time, there's definitely folks from out of town, and there's a lot of trash that's left behind. So even with the signage saying residents only, there's plenty of folks. I don't think there's a weekend that I go to the boat launch that there aren't out-of-town folks there.
Right. And so exactly my point is, you go to these places that say resident only, how do you know? There's no
Right.
stickers, there's no ID, there's no anything, like, so, and I know I'll get a little bing on this, where I grew up. You didn't go to a town park unless you had a sticker on your car. And if you showed up there and parked the car, that car had a ticket on it within an hour. So these cars are just able to park there. A second benefit of sticker, can have a Connecticut registration in Southbury. So these cars that aren't paying our grand list taxes would have to have a sticker on them
Yeah.
and avoid the New York or North Carolina or other state plates in the town of Southbury.
I do like the idea of cracking down on the out-of-state registrations, because that makes my blood boil, but do we have the manpower to patrol all of these areas and enforce the stickers? Do our officers have the bandwidth to do that?
It depends on what's going on in the town at any given time.
Yeah.
If it's not busy, yes. I mean, I've asked them, what's interesting, I've even asked them one of the patrol checks, even at midnight, is our town parks. And including up in the Purchase and Little Lona and all of those, because the day shift came in years ago, and they checked the park, and there was a complete camping setup with lights and generator. And I know that didn't spring up that morning. They're patrolling them, they're supposed to be patrol check even at night to make sure there's not people there at night and have them move along if they are. A lot of times it's and they check in the evening before dark. You know, but they're out there. They're out there. It's just, there's a lot of people coming.
And I think with the stickers or whatever form of check and balance, it's a maintenance thing at that point. Like, all you have to do is show up one weekend at a certain time, and you ruin the people who are not supposed to be there, you just ruin their day. Once they know that's in place and the sign says sticker required, you see all these stickers lined up, you're gonna move on, because you're not gonna risk.
So
hanging
we've
out there.
expanded the no parking further and further on the roads, and they just keep moving. And the problem is, over at River Road, there's state property, and we can't restrict the state property. They can park on the state property. We can't say no parking. They're not parking on the road, they're parking in state property. So you just all you're doing is pushing it further and further out. And again, they pull up, unload all their stuff. One person drives a half a mile away and walks back. They spend the day, and then again, you're pushing it out further, and they don't bring and they're not gonna take their trash. I would like to just see if we can get them to park responsibly and take their trash with them at the end of the day. I don't think there would be such an outcry. That I think is the biggest problem, is the trash that builds up,
I'm interested in this idea. I can tell you, living here for 13 years, that boat ramp at the north end of town in the Purchase never got used. And since COVID, it's insane the amount of people that are there. And like Holly said, it's all out of towners. And so I hear what you're saying. You'll end up pushing people, but the volume of people that are there, not all those people will park on the street. Not with their trailers, their boat trailers. It's all boat trailer traffic.
And a quick footnote, I'm just thinking back years, raising my kids in a landlocked town, not in Southbury, that's what we did, is we looked for places where you could go put your boat in and not be hassled. So you looked for that boat ramp that we have here in Southbury, that you could put your boat in, put your sailboat in, your kayaks in, park your car, and not be bothered. That's golden for an out-of-towner. And so, because it's the other towns around that have the permit requirements, the no parking for you have to have a town permit on your car to park in the neighborhood. And that's what deters them from, they've got to move on. Find a state park or another town that lets you in.
So we are gonna be doing some work on that this year, and as part of the money, we're gonna be working on that, hopefully. Get that, so maybe we'll look into that, at least on that one, maybe we'll look for a permit required. Okay.
And I remember that we voted on it, I think it was like $30,000, and it was for the ramp and the gangway,
For a dock,
for a new dock.
new dock.
Oh yeah, that dock was pretty beat up.
So we're waiting we gotta get the dock.
Is there, just out of curiosity, how frequently does that area get paved?
How-
So, the paving does the actual boat launch, the whole piece of land there that's paved, how often does that get repaved?
It's not on the schedule, like for repaving.
I just happened to notice that the asphalt was kind of purpling.
It's awful.
Yeah.
I'll just say it.
It's a good to put on the agenda, on the to-do list.
And then-
I'll get you, I know it's in the queue. I just don't know when, off the top of my head here, that they're planning on doing that. I know, Michael Ganem is working on the dock and Jerry's aware of the need to fix that. So it's in the queue, I just don't know when.
So
All
a
right.
quick, so this does go back to Parks and Rec, and a quick comment on that, because they were talking about that, that Public Works and Jerry was gonna bring some, and this is the way I heard it, some two-by material down there and build a new dock and sit it there. But these are, is there a plan or a sketch? I mean, were you looking to just see this, this existing metal piered dock rebuilt, or is there a specific?
No, there's a plan for a new floating dock. Part of the problem with that dock that's set is it rises and it's up and down, the water's up and down to the dock. So it really should be a floating dock that sits there. I know they've called the dock companies, and they've been working with Brian Wood of First Light, because you gotta get permits from First Light to do any changes. I don't anticipate a problem with that. And again, make it so that there's, and Brian made some suggestions on the dock, like, you don't want people tying up and being there like it's a permanent place. You want them to go, load, get in the boat and go, not hang out on the dock. So don't make it, a big dock, because you'll end up with a lot more there.
Yeah, so with it not being a floating dock, it's interesting because sometimes you'll pull up, like my daughter, we kayak pretty often. So you'll either pull up and you're right near it, or it's 8 feet above you, and there's no way you're getting on it. So,
No.
It doesn't really make sense right now.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you.